And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again, and today we're actually touching on some DC Rebirth stuff. So I haven't got myself into a position where I'm going to be doing my full DC Rebirth guide quite yet, but I did do a poll on Twitter, or X, or wherever it's called now, asking if people would like some kind of intermediate DC Rebirth stuff, just picking off some stuff around the edges before I dive into the meat of it. And people largely said yeah. Not that many people responded, but those that did said yeah. And so this is an example of that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about a small section of the DC Rebirth universe today, and it's a nice closed little sub-universe of that publishing era. And I'm going to be able to talk about all of it in its entirety, which is always a nice thing to do. So today, with no further ado, what I'll be talking about is DC's Young Animal, which is what they call a pop-up imprint, which is like a sub-imprint of DC Comics. So imagine something like Vertigo, which is like an imprint within DC or something like that. Marvel's had similar things. It had like the Tsunami imprint, the Marvel Knights imprint, that sort of stuff. So Young Animal is a small closed sub-imprint or pop-up imprint in DC Comics that was published between 2016 and 2021, which is obviously exactly within the DC Rebirth era. It started at the New 52 and it ended when DC Rebirth ended. So as such, it feels like a really nice, tight little universe for me to talk through. It's basically entirely self-contained. You don't need to know or read anything else in order to understand where Young Animal fits in. And in fact, I've actually split the DC Rebirth publishing period of that 5 years into 8 specific sections. And this is one of those self-contained sections. So no further ado, what is DC's Young Animal? Well, like I say, it's a pop-up imprint that was coordinated by a comic book writer called Gerard Way. If you've heard of him, that's because he's an American musician, but more importantly, he's actually the author of the Umbrella Academy. And Umbrella Academy is, well, it's hard to describe. The comic itself is, in my opinion, pretty terrible. It's published by Dark Horse Comics and it's largely unreadable and rubbish. But the TV show was incredible. It was amazing. One of the best TV shows of the last 10 years. So it's a difficult one to kind of know what you're getting into when you're getting into Gerard Way. What I'd say, if you like the TV show, that's not an indication of what the comic would like. But if you do like the Umbrella Academy comic, that's a very good indication of what DC's Young Animal is like. Now, he's not a writer for most of the comics that we're going to be talking about. He basically brought in a bunch of other people that did their own sort of thing for these various lines, but he was kind of the architect of it. And as a result, pretty much everything that we're about to talk about has that Umbrella Academy comic vibe, which is another way of saying I personally didn't enjoy it at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into a map that I'm going to show you in a second, which is going to be explaining exactly what the series are, what the various trade collections are called, what issues are contained in them, and what sequence you should read them in if you want to read this entire universe in one. And here we have it. Here is the DC Young Animal map. I've made it in the same software I've been using for all my other maps, and like I say, this is quite a small, nice, self-contained one. So with no further ado, let's dive into exactly what is contained in DC's Young Animal. And we can pretty much fit most of it on a page right here. So to start with, when this first launched and started having the various issues that comprised it, it was 4 series, and those 4 series all launched in 2016. I'll just zoom into them here. And they're the ones we can see at the top right here. We had Cave Carson, and specifically it's called Cave Carson Has a Cybernetic Eye. We had Doom Patrol, we had Mother Panic, and we had Shade the Changing Girl. And all of these came out at the same time in 2016. Now, Cave Carson Has a Cybernetic Eye is actually kind of a revival of an old 1970s comic character called Cave Carson. And what we have here is the first volume, which is issues 1 to 6. And then straight after that, you have the second volume, which is issues 7 to 12. The first one's called Going Underground, and the second one is called Every Me, Every You. And here are the covers here. I might as well zoom in, given we've got this nice new high-res software. And here you are, Cave Carson Has a Cybernetic Eye, Volume 2, Every Me, Every You. At the same time as this getting released in 2016, we then also saw Doom Patrol. Now, Doom Patrol is an kind of a ongoing comic book group. They're like JSA or Justice League, but like a really weird offbeat Vertigo inspired one. In the past, it's had writers like Neil Gaiman and China Miéville and so on kind of chipping in on what Doom Patrol do. And as a result, they're a bit quirky, they're a bit strange, but I guess for want of a better term, they're a super team. What you have here is Volume 1, which is issues 1 to 6, and it's called Brick by Brick. And that's followed by Volume 2, which is simply called Nada, and that's issues 7 to 12. Let's zoom out a little bit, and let's pop over here. So again, at the same time that this line launched, this imprint launched, we also had this. So Mother Panic, Volume 1 is called A Work in Progress and contains issues 1 to 6. What I will point out is that Mother Panic is technically part of the Batman universe. And I think some people get very, very excited when they see that. They're like, oh, it's part of Batman something, Gotham something. It's not really. It's just, it's its own thing. It's definitely its own thing. And the second trade collection of Mother Panic was called Volume 2, Under Her Skin. And that collects issues 7 to 12. More on that in just a second. But the final line that was part of the launch of DC's Young Animal is Shade the Changing Girl, which is actually a follow-up to an older series from I think the 80s maybe, called Shade the Changing Woman, which was a Vertigo series. And the first trade collection is called Volume 1, Earth Girl Made Easy, collecting the first 6 issues. And the second one is called Little Runaway and collects issues 7 to 12. So let's just have a quick look at those top ones then. So what we have here are the first 4 series that comprise DC's Young Animal. Each of them is 12 issues long. Each of them is collected into 2 trade paperbacks. They're all completely self-contained and standalone and completely distinct to the rest of the DC Rebirth universe going on at the time. That seems quite obvious. Cave Carson, fine. Doom Patrol, fine. Shade the Changing Girl, fine. Now, Mother Panic is something people get very tempted to get very excited about, include as part of the Batman family or Batman universe of the main DC Rebirth. It really isn't. It absolutely isn't. Do not get overexcited by that. It's part of the Young Animal universe. And as a result, it's got that weird tone, which I'm not a fan of. It's hard to describe. If you read the Umbrella Academy comics, it's that kind of vibe. But it is its own unique thing. Just moving over before we go any further, you'll notice there's also this volume here, which is Bug, which is a 6-issue series that released in 2017. So this wasn't one of the debut lines that launched DC Young Animal. It's only 6 issues long, and it contains this character, Bug, which is kind of like a reboot of a previous character that was used maybe like 10, 15 years ago called Forager. And again, I've got to be honest, not for me, pretty unreadable. Anyway, if you want to read it, that is exactly what the first wave, I think is as it's called, of the first wave of Young Animal look like that. Then in 2018, you'll see they all climax into this, Milk Wars. Now, I'll be honest, Bug does not climax into Milk Wars. I've only got it in there just, kind of for the sake of symmetry. But Cave Carson, Doom Patrol, Mother Panic, and Shade the Changing Girl all form part of this singular crossover event, which is, quote-unquote, a universe-wide event, combining all of these characters and crossing over with some mainstream DC characters. Now, here it is, Milk Wars. It actually comprises 5 issues. The first one is JLA Doom Patrol. The second one is Mother Panic and Batman. Don't get overexcited. I know it's Batman, but just restrain yourselves. The third one is Shade the Changing Girl with Wonder Woman. The fourth one is Cave Carson with Swamp Thing, oddly enough. And then the last one is Doom Patrol JLA, which is kind of like the flip of the title of the first issue, which was JLA Doom Patrol. Now, those 5 issues together form the Milk Wars mini event, which is, like I say, a line-wide event for all of Young Animal, bringing all those characters together. It does sort of cross over. It does obviously have Batman and Wonder Woman and that sort of stuff in it, but they're not versions that I recognise and don't appear to be part of the main DC Rebirth continuity that's going on at the time. So I feel very confident in saying Milk Wars is its own thing. If we zoom out for a moment then, so we've got the 2016 launches, the 2017 comics, the 2018 event. And after the 2018 event in 2019, you then had series that span out of that. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. Bug does not have a post-Milk Wars series, but the other 4 lines do. So Cave Carson, Doom Patrol, Mother Panic, and Shade. Instead of there being Bug, there's in fact this series on the left here called Collapser, and the series on the right called Eternity Girl. But what I'll do, I'll talk through each of these one by one, just so you've got an idea of what they are. So Collapser is a 6-issue limited series. It's all collected here in the trade paperback, which is called Collapser. Again, I found it personally very, very hard to read, but it's very much in keeping with the tone and style of DC's Young Animal. Next, Cave Carson comes back with a new volume which is called Cave Carson Has an Interstellar Eye. So taking it up one notch from the previous title. And as you'll recall, that was he has a cybernetic eye. And now he has an interstellar eye. And that is, again, a 6-issue series. Doom Patrol come back with another series, issues 1 to 7. So not 6 issues, but 7 issues. And that's called Weight of the Worlds, as you can see there. Now, Mother Panic comes back, and it's called Mother Panic: Gotham AD. So it's a 6-issue series with the subtitle Gotham AD. Yes, it's Gotham. Yes, it's Batman. Yes, feel free to read it. Shade, the Changing Girl, comes back, but this time comes back as Shade, the Changing Woman. Again, it's a 6-issue series, and again, keeping with the same tone and vibe of the previous series as well. And then another new series, much like Collapser, is here, Eternity Girl. So 6-issue series, brand new character. However, Eternity Girl is functionally, in terms of sort of continuity, very much a sequel to the idea of Kid Eternity. Kid Eternity is a character that's been floating around for quite some time, since about the 70s. I personally really loved the Kid Eternity run by Grant Morrison back in the day, in the mid-90s. It was utterly spectacular. But other than that, Kid Eternity is a pretty strange, pretty weird, Vertigo-esque sort of title. And as a result, it kind of makes sense to me that they decided to bring back a spin-off or a reboot of Kid Eternity here in Young Animal as Eternity Girl. That does kind of make sense. So, looking at all these, one thing that I just very much want to point out to everyone is that for all this, you can read it in largely whatever sequence you want. That's why I've kind of structured it like this, where if you want, you can just read Cave Carson, or you can just read Doom Patrol. You don't need to read Doom Patrol to understand Mother Panic. You don't need to read Mother Panic to understand Bug, and so on. All of them tie into Milk Wars, but to be honest, I found it so hard to kind of follow this along internally, just in terms of the way each story was structured, that I think you'll be fine reading Milk Wars just by itself without really reading necessarily Doom Patrol or Cave Carson or anything like that. Similarly, after Milk Wars, when the series all variously relaunch and you get these 2 new series as well, Collapser and Kid Eternity, what I would say is you can read any of these or you can read all of these, and you can read them in any order you want. They're not linked whatsoever. If you do want to do a full read through like I've done, I'd basically recommend doing this. Read Bug, read both Cave Carsons, Doom Patrols, Mother Panics, Shades, then read Milk Wars, and then read this 6 in whatever order you want, basically. And that's it. That's the sum totality of the Young Animal universe, or almost the sum totality thereof. So if we spin out a little bit, oh, bloody hell, there we are. There you go. This is the Young Animal universe, and you'll notice right here on the side, right down here, completely unconnected from anything else, in the post-Milk Wars universe of Young Animal, so this was launched in like late 2018, early 2019, we have this series, which is very clearly both a Green Lantern series and also very, very clearly a Young Animal series. Now, this is the only Young Animal series which arguably could be fit into the mainstream DC universe. It hasn't got any lanterns you've ever heard of, but it has got the concept of Green Lanterns, which obviously is mainstream DC Rebirth. So arguably it could fit in there. What I would say, and what I would view as being much more important, is that whilst I found all the rest of DC's Young Animal like quite difficult to read, like it was quite laborious and it was just sapping my will to live while I was reading it, what I would say is this: when it comes to Far Sector is fucking spectacular. It is a 12-issue series. It's all collected in one singular, oversized deluxe edition hardcover, which I purchased the moment I read this in singles. I was like, hang on, I have to have this. It is spectacular. It is an excellent Green Lantern story, really well written. The artwork is sumptuous. It has no bearing on anything to do with Young Animal in any conceivable way. God knows how it ended up in this imprint somehow. Spectacular Green Lantern story. Highly, highly recommended. And to be honest, made this entire process of reading the Young Animal universe, it finally made it worthwhile, because otherwise, I'll be honest, I was kind of losing the will to live a little bit. But here we have it. There is Far Sector. And Far Sector, I haven't connected it via any lines or anything, because it feels like such a standalone and unusual kind of series that I really didn't want to connect it to anything else. I really feel it can be read in complete isolation, even more than the others. And tonally, it feels so very different. So there you are, DC's Young Animal. This imprint carried on publishing with obviously the bottom row of comics up until early 2021, at which point it folded up. I don't know really why it folded up. I haven't really gone into the politics of it all. But what I will say is that it forms a closed, discrete comics universe during the DC Rebirth era. Hopefully you can see this all here, nice and clear. I'll make this infographic available on my website at some point. I haven't done it today, simply because I haven't bothered like going in and tweaking around the back end of the website. But I am planning on doing some major changes to the website over the next month or so at some point. And when I do, I'll just stick this up there so you've got it. It's not especially complicated, so I don't really think anyone's going to be rushing to download it anytime soon. It's just here. You can see it, you can pause it, you can zoom in. And I'll make this, like I say, this zoomable map available on the website. But that is DC Young Animal, a self-contained bubble within the DC Rebirth universe, distinct from all the rest of the mainstream DC Rebirth, as well as all the other kind of spin-off universes. In total, I view there as being 8 DC Rebirth kind of spin-off bubbles, and we're going to go through them one at a time, and one of them is going to be the main DC Rebirth core continuity, which we're going to be slowly spiraling towards. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, everyone. I hope you found that useful. This is a pretty impromptu, poorly planned video, but as I said, I'm trying to keep the momentum on the channel up, and it'd be lovely to know what you think, whether or not you think that this kind of drip feeding of some DC Rebirth stuff is helpful. I do want to sort of provide this content out there, and happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any. As always, support the channel. Cue the outro. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at @IamThomasJudge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.